I destroyed my wife's life in front of her parents, and I don't regret a single second of it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, from when I was just Daniel Murphy, a 41-year-old warehouse supervisor who thought he had a decent marriage. 17 years with Claire. That's longer than some people stay at their jobs, longer than most Hollywood marriages last, long enough that I thought we'd weathered whatever storms life could throw at us. I was wrong. It started with the small things, the way erosion begins with droplets before the whole cliff face collapses. Claire stopped meeting my eyes during dinner. Our conversations became transactional. Bills, schedules, whose turn to buy groceries. The last time we'd been intimate was 4 months ago, and even then it felt like she was somewhere else, going through the motions like checking off a chore. I told myself it was just a rough patch. Every marriage has them. My buddy Jake went through the same thing with his wife before their 20th anniversary, and they came out stronger. So I waited, gave her space, figured whatever was bothering her would work itself out. Then came that Tuesday afternoon in March. The conveyor system at the warehouse had seized up, a bearing failure that would take the maintenance crew at least 6 hours to fix. My supervisor told everyone to go home, said we'd make up the hours later in the week. I should have called Claire, should have let her know I'd be home early. But I wanted to surprise her, maybe take her out for an early dinner at that Italian place she used to love. I pulled into our driveway at 2:47 p.m. I remember the exact time, because I was calculating whether we could make the early bird special. Claire's Honda was in the garage, which wasn't unusual. She worked from home 3 days a week doing medical billing. I grabbed the mail, sorted through the usual junk, and stepped inside. The house felt different. Can't explain it exactly, like the air pressure had changed. Or maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks. I set my keys on the hall table, quieter than usual, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it was the stillness, the way the house seemed to be holding its breath. That's when I smelled it. Cologne. Expensive stuff, not the drugstore aftershave I'd been using for 15 years. It was sophisticated, woody with hints of bergamot, the kind of scent you'd smell in the men's department at Nordstrom, not in a warehouse supervisor's split level in the suburbs. I followed the scent like a bloodhound, my work boots silent on the carpet. It led to the guest bedroom, the door slightly ajar when it was always kept closed. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The room was empty, but someone had been here. The bedspread was smoothed but not quite right, like someone had hastily made the bed. The cologne smell was stronger here, mixed with something else. Claire's perfume, but not the one she usually wore. This was new, more sensual. I searched the room methodically, checking under the bed, in the closet, behind the dresser. Nothing. Concrete, no forgotten tie or cufflink like in the movies. Just that damn smell and the certainty that another man had been in my house in this room. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Claire's brother had visited, but Tom lived in Seattle and always called first. A repair guy? But nothing was broken, and Claire would have mentioned it. I heard her car keys jingling in the kitchen, the sound of her humming, actually humming, as she prepared dinner. I walked out slowly, composing my face into something neutral. "Hey, honey," she called out, bright and cheerful. "You're home early. Everything okay at work?" She was standing at the stove, stirring pasta sauce. Her dark hair was styled differently, curled and pinned up in a way she never did for me anymore. She wore a new blouse, silk, the kind that cost more than she usually spent. And when she turned to smile at me, I saw it. A mark on her collarbone, purple-red, partially hidden by makeup that didn't quite match her skin tone. "What happened there?" I asked, pointing. Her hand flew to her neck as she replied quickly. "Oh, this? Stupid curling iron. I'm trying this new style and, you know me, all thumbs with these things." She laughed, but it was too high, too quick. I nodded, said something about the equipment failure at work. We ate dinner in relative silence, punctuated by her occasional comments about her day. Conference calls, billing disputes, normal stuff. But I noticed things I'd been blind to before, the way she kept her phone face down, The little smile when it buzzed with a text. The way she angled her body away from me like she was protecting something. That night, as Claire slept beside me, peacefully, without a care in the world, I stared at the ceiling and felt something inside me harden into resolve. 17. Years of marriage, 2 cars, a mortgage, shared dreams of maybe retiring early and traveling. All of it built on what? A lie? How long had this been going on? I knew I needed proof, not just suspicions. But what I was about to discover would make me question everything I thought I knew about the woman sleeping next to me. The next morning, Wednesday, I called in late to work, telling my supervisor I had a dental appointment. Instead, I drove to Tech World on the other side of town, where nobody would recognize me. The kid working there, couldn't have been older than 22, was eager to help. Home security, I told him. Something small, wireless, motion-activated. Oh, we've got just the thing, he replied enthusiastically, leading me to a display of cameras smaller than golf balls. This baby here connects to your phone via Wi-Fi. Motion alerts, night vision, cloud storage for the recordings. It's what everyone's using these days. I bought 2, one for the guest bedroom, one for the living room, paid cash. The kid threw in a tutorial on the app, showed me how to set up zones, adjust sensitivity, even how to delete footage selectively. Most people use these for catching package thieves, he said with a grin. Saturday came. Claire announced she was spending the day with her sister Lauren, shopping and lunch, wouldn't be back until evening. She kissed my cheek absently, already scrolling through her phone as she walked to her car. I waited 20 minutes to make sure she wouldn't double back for something forgotten, then got to work. The guest bedroom camera went behind a dusty silk plant on the dresser, angled to capture the entire room. The living room camera nestled between books on a high shelf, covering the entryway and most of the main floor. I tested both feeds on my phone, adjusting angles until they were perfect. Then I waited. Sunday, nothing. Monday, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe the cologne belonged to a neighbor who'd borrowed something. Maybe the hickey really was a curling iron burn. I'd seen marriages destroyed by suspicious minds before. Was I becoming that guy? Thursday, 2:23 p.m. I was in the warehouse office reviewing shipping manifests when my phone buzzed. Motion alert, guest bedroom. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I stepped into the bathroom, locked the door, opened the app. There was my wife, my Claire, leading a man into our guest bedroom. He was young. God, so young. 25, maybe 26, with the kind of lean muscle you get from gym dedication, not manual labor. Tall, confident, with perfectly styled hair and clothes that probably cost more than I made in a week. They were laughing about something, Claire's head thrown back in genuine delight, the way she used to laugh with me years ago. She pulled him by his expensive tie, playful, flirtatious. Then he caught her waist, pulled her close, and kissed her with a passion that made my stomach twist into knots. I watched my marriage die in real time as clothes started coming off. I barely made it to the toilet before the bile came up. 17 years. 17 frigging years of being faithful, of turning down opportunities, of choosing her every single day. My knees hurt from kneeling on the cold tile, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional gutting I'd just witnessed. But even through the hurt, the warehouse supervisor in me took over, the part that had caught employees stealing. Inventory, that documented everything, that built cases with evidence. I screenshot everything. The timestamp showing 2:23 p.m. on a Thursday when she claimed to be working, their faces clearly visible. The state of undress that left no room for innocent explanations. Over the next week, I became an investigator. I found credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Always lunch, always for two, always on days I was at work. I discovered a Victoria's Secret charge from last month. Lingerie I'd never seen. Her Google location, History, which she'd forgotten I had access to from when we shared our locations for safety, showed regular visits to an address across town, a luxury apartment complex I'd delivered to once. Her phone was password protected, but she didn't know about the tablet we shared that synced her messages. Late at night, while she slept, I read their exchanges. His name was Kyle, investment banker. Met Claire at a coffee shop 3 months ago. The messages progressed from friendly to flirty to explicit. She told him things about me, how I was simple, how I lacked ambition, how she was tired of the warehouse smell that clung to me. That hurt more than the cheating itself. I collected everything. Videos, screenshots, messages, credit card records. I organized it all in a folder on my phone labeled Taxes 2024. Every piece of evidence meticulously cataloged with dates and descriptions. Not for divorce court. Ohio's a no-fault state, and infidelity wouldn't matter much anyway. No, this evidence was for something else entirely. As I reviewed it all late Sunday night, Claire asleep beside me after another sexless week, a plan began forming. She destroyed our marriage, humiliated me, made me a fool in my own home. A simple divorce would let her walk away, probably spin some story about growing apart, maybe even paint me as the villain, the unambitious warehouse worker who couldn't satisfy her needs. Evidence wasn't enough anymore. I wanted justice, and I knew exactly who would help me deliver it. The two people who raised her to believe marriage was sacred. I spent the weekend studying my in-laws like a general planning an invasion. Robert Hendricks, former Army sergeant, 3 tours in Iraq, now 63 and running his own security company. Still did 100 push-ups every morning. Still called his daughter Princess. Still believed in honor above all else. At our wedding, he'd pulled me aside and said, "You're family now, son. You protect my daughter, and I'll always have your back. But if you ever hurt her, I'll bury you where no one will find you." Patricia Hendricks was different, but equally formidable. Raised Southern Baptist, switched to Catholic when she married Robert. Ran the church's marriage counseling program, wrote a column for the local paper about family values. She'd once cut her own sister out of her life for 5 years because the sister had an affair. A woman who breaks her vows, she'd told me at last year's Christmas dinner, breaks the foundation of society itself. They lived 40 minutes away in a house Robert built with his Army retirement and business profits. Every Sunday, they hosted family dinner. Every Wednesday, Patricia had her church ladies over for Bible study. Their reputation in their community was spotless, built on decades of moral superiority and judgment of others who didn't meet their standards. They were perfect. I studied the pattern Kyle and Claire had established. Tuesdays and Thursdays, always between 2 and 4 p.m., when normal people were at work. Kyle probably had a flexible schedule. Investment bankers could work from anywhere. Claire would claim she was running errands or meeting clients. The routine was clockwork, which made it predictable. Tuesday morning, I woke up with a migraine. At least, that's what I told Claire. "Maybe you should stay home," she suggested, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. "Can't. Big shipment coming in," I replied, dry swallowing some aspirin for show. She kissed my forehead, motherly, not wifely, and I left for work. But instead of driving to the warehouse, I went to Murphy's Diner on the other side of town. I ordered coffee, sat in a corner booth, and waited until 11:30. The call to Patricia required Oscar-level acting. "Patricia, thank God you answered," I said, letting my voice crack with panic. "Something's wrong with Claire. I came home because I forgot my medication and I found her collapsed in the guest bedroom. She's breathing but won't wake up." "Oh my God. Did you call 911? She asked frantically. I didn't know what to do," I stammered. "She's been taking these new anxiety medications, and I think she might have mixed them with something. I can't call an ambulance. If it's an overdose, it could ruin her career, your reputation. Please, I need you and Robert here. I need help." The manipulation was cruel, playing on her fears about reputation, but it worked. "We're leaving right now," she assured me urgently. 20 minutes, Daniel. Keep her breathing. We're coming," I drove back to my neighborhood, parking one street over where I could see my house. At 1:58, Kyle's BMW pulled into my driveway. He had his own key. That was new information. They didn't even pretend to knock anymore. I waited 15 minutes. Enough time for them to get comfortable, get started but not finish. Then I drove around the block, timing it perfectly to arrive just as Robert's truck pulled up. They were out of the vehicle before I'd even parked. Robert in his Army veteran cap, Patricia clutching her purse like a weapon. Both faces etched with parental terror. "Where is she?" Robert demanded immediately. "Guest bedroom," I said, leading them to the front door. "I found her there, and—" I stopped in the doorway, made them stop too. There, draped over my living room chair, was a man's suit jacket. Italian, expensive. On the coffee table, a woman's blouse, the silk one Claire had worn this morning. A trail of clothes led down the hallway like breadcrumbs. From the guest bedroom came sounds, rhythmic, unmistakable, punctuated by Claire's voice calling out a name that wasn't mine. Patricia's hand went to her mouth. Robert's face cycled through confusion, understanding, then settled on rage, the kind of controlled fury that probably served him well in combat. "How long?" he asked me, his voice deadly quiet. "I've been gathering evidence for weeks," I answered, meeting his eyes directly. "Today, we end this." Robert nodded once, sharp and military. Then he walked toward the guest bedroom with the measured stride of a man about to execute a mission. I followed, adrenaline singing through my veins. Patricia came last, her Catholic righteousness overcoming her shock. We didn't knock. Robert kicked the door open with enough force to splinter the frame, a sound like a gunshot that echoed through the house. The scene was burned into my retinas. My wife of 17 years straddling a man young enough to be the son we never had. Both of them naked and glistening with sweat, frozen in that moment between ecstasy and horror. "Daddy?" Claire's voice came out small, childlike, nothing like the confident woman who'd been moaning seconds before. Kyle tried to scramble backward, but there was nowhere to go. His eyes, wide, terrified, darted between Robert's military bulk and my warehouse worker frame. He made a calculation and chose what he thought was the safer option. He chose wrong. Robert moved with the efficiency of a man who'd cleared hostile buildings in Fallujah. One hand grabbed Kyle by the throat, lifting him partially off the bed. The other delivered a precise strike to his solar plexus that dropped the young man to his knees, gasping. "This is the respect you show a man's home?" Robert asked, his voice conversational, which made it more terrifying. "You come into my son-in-law's house and defile his marriage?" Kyle tried to speak, maybe to apologize or explain, but Robert's boot caught him in the ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, Robert had too much control for that, but hard enough to drive the point home. I stood in the doorway, watching my father-in-law deliver the beating I'd fantasized about. Each blow was measured, calculated to hurt without causing permanent damage. Kyle curled into a ball, sobbing, his perfect gym body useless against a man who'd learned to fight in actual combat. "Stop! You're hurting him!" Claire screamed, clutching a sheet to her chest. That's when Patricia stepped forward. The slap echoed through the room like a thunderclap. Claire's head snapped sideways, a red handprint blooming on her cheek. "Don't you dare!" Patricia said, her voice shaking with rage. "Don't you dare act like the victim here. You made vows before God and family. You stood in my church in the dress I helped you choose and promised to forsake all others." Claire was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Mom, please, you don't understand," she pleaded desperately. "I understand perfectly," Patricia cut her off icily. "You're a whore, no different from your Aunt Cheryl, and you'll get the same treatment. You're dead to me." Kyle saw his chance while Robert was watching his wife eviscerate their daughter. He scrambled toward the door on all fours, not even trying to grab his clothes. I stepped aside, let him pass. He ran through my house naked, leaving drops of blood from his nose on my carpet, and I heard his BMW peel out moments later. "Daniel was a good husband to you," Patricia continued, unstoppable now. He worked double shifts to buy this house. He took care of you when you had surgery last year. He loved you, and this is how you repay him? With a boy? A child playing at being a man? I was lonely, Claire wailed in response. Daniel's always at work, always tired. Kyle made me feel special, made me feel young again. You're 40 years old, Robert interrupted her, his voice flat. You're not young. You're a middle-aged woman who destroyed her marriage for what? Some attention? Some compliments from a boy who probably tells the same lies to 3 other married women? I finally spoke. I have it all documented, videos, messages, credit card statements, 3 months of evidence showing you turned our home into your personal brothel while I was at work. Claire's eyes widened as she gasped. You recorded me? In my own home? Yes, I confirmed coldly. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 weeks. Would you like your parents to see the videos, read the messages where you called me pathetic and boring? Where you laughed about the warehouse smell that disgusted you? She shrank back, against the headboard, suddenly looking very small and very naked under that sheet. Get dressed, I commanded. Pack your things. You have 1 hour. Daniel, please, we can work through this, she begged. No, I cut her off, the word coming out harder than I intended. You killed this marriage. You killed it 3 months ago when you decided that 17 years meant less than a coffee shop flirtation. You killed it every time you came home from having intimacy with him and slept beside me like nothing happened. Robert pulled out his phone. I'm calling Tommy Martins, he announced. Best divorce lawyer in the state, handles all my company's legal work. He'll bury you with this evidence. Claire looked at her parents, desperation clear on her face. Where am I supposed to go? She asked plaintively. You'll come with us, Patricia said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a kindness. For 1 week. Long enough to find a job and an apartment. After that, you're on your own. Mom, Claire started. Don't call me that, Patricia snapped back. I didn't raise a daughter who would do this. I don't know who you are. The next hour passed in relative silence, broken only by Claire's sobbing and the sound of suitcases being filled. She packed while her mother stood guard, ensuring she only took what was hers. Every piece of jewelry I'd bought her over the years stayed. The expensive laptop I'd surprised her with last Christmas stayed. She left with clothes, toiletries, and the crushing weight of her parents' disgust. Robert shook my hand before they left. I'm sorry, son, he said solemnly. I'm sorry we raised a daughter who could do this to you. The lawyer will call you tomorrow. Patricia hugged me, the first time in 17 years. You're still family, she whispered. She's not. I watched them drive away, Claire in the back seat like a teenager being taken home from jail. She looked back once, maybe hoping to see some sign of forgiveness, some crack in my resolve. I turned away and went inside. The house felt different now, not empty but clean, like a wound that had finally been properly cauterized. 6 months later, I signed the final divorce papers in Tommy Martin's office. Robert was right, the man was a shark. Claire got nothing. No alimony, no equity in the house, not even the car that was in both our names. The evidence I'd compiled, combined with Robert and Patricia's testimony about what they'd witnessed, painted a clear picture of adultery that even Ohio's no-fault divorce laws couldn't ignore when it came to asset division. She'd tried to fight it at first, hired her own lawyer with money borrowed from her sister. But when Tommy threatened to make all the evidence public record, the videos, the messages, everything, she folded. Signed whatever we put in front of her just to make it go away. I kept the house. It took a while to feel like home again. I had the guest bedroom professionally cleaned, then converted it into a home office. Bought a new bed for the master bedroom, new sheets, new everything. Slowly erased her presence from the space we'd once shared. The warehouse guys knew something had happened. News travels fast in a small city, but they respected me enough not to pry. My supervisor gave me a week off during the worst of it, told me to come back when I was ready. When I did, I threw myself into work, took on extra shifts, saved money I no longer had to spend on anniversary dinners she was probably laughing about with Kyle. Speaking of Kyle, he disappeared completely. Word got around about what happened. Robert made sure of that through his security contacts. Last I heard, Kyle had transferred to his company's Los Angeles office, probably for the best. Robert's not a man you want to run into twice. Claire found a job eventually, working as a medical biller for a clinic 3 towns over. She rents a one-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop. I know because she had to provide her employment information for the divorce settlement. Sometimes I drive by, not stalking, just confirming that justice was served. She looks older, tired, like the weight of her choices aged her 5 years and 6 months. Her parents kept their word. After that first week, they cut her off completely. Patricia removed all of Claire's photos from their house. I know because Robert told me when we met for beer last month. Yeah, we still meet occasionally. He says I'm the son he wished he'd had, which is both flattering and sad. She calls sometimes, Robert told me over his third beer. Leaves voicemails. Patricia deletes them without listening. Do you ever think about forgiving her? I asked him. He was quiet for a long moment before answering. I spent 3 tours believing in honor, discipline, loyalty. I tried to instill those values in my daughter. Her betrayal wasn't just against you. It was against everything I taught her to be. So no, I don't think about forgiving her. She made her choice. I see Patricia sometimes at the grocery store. She always stops to chat, asks how I'm doing. Last week, she mentioned her church friend has a daughter who's single, a nurse at the hospital. When you're ready, she said, patting my arm. No rush. I'm not ready, not yet. The wounds are scarring over, but trust. That's going to take longer to rebuild. I've been going to therapy, working through the anger that still sometimes wakes me at night. Dr. Martinez says it's normal, that betrayal trauma takes time to heal, but I'm healing. That's the important part. The house is quiet now, but it's a good quiet, peaceful. I cook my own dinners, watch the shows I want to watch, sleep diagonal across the bed because I can. There's no one checking their phone with secret smiles, no suspicious cologne scents, no lies dressed up as curling iron burns. Last night, I found our wedding album while cleaning the attic. 17 years ago, Claire and I stood before family and God and promised to love, honor, and cherish. I looked at our young faces, so certain of the future, so sure our love could weather anything. I threw the album in the garbage. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep to forgive, and some prices once paid can never be refunded. Claire paid hers in full. She lost a husband who loved her, parents who cherished her, and a life built on 17 years of shared history, all for 3 months, with a boy who ran naked from our house and never looked back. As I write this, it's Tuesday afternoon, 2:37 to be exact. 6 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon just like this, Claire would have been in the guest bedroom with Kyle, betraying every promise she'd ever made to me. Today, she's probably at work, billing insurance claims in a cramped office, living above a pizza shop that makes the whole building smell like garlic. And me? I'm sitting in my home office, in what used to be the guest bedroom, writing this story. The room where my marriage died has become the room where I'm rebuilding my life. There's poetry in that, I think. Or maybe it's just justice. Either way, I don't regret a single second of it. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.